Okay, so part two, what does it mean to be human? I love this question. So I've been to the Hall of Human Origins at the Smithsonian. It is absolutely fascinating. And it's a really good question, right? What is a characteristic that makes us human? Now, from a gospel perspective, I believe that it's having a soul, a spirit inside of us that's a child of our heavenly parents. But as far as like characteristics of our body or behaviors that set us clearly apart from our other hominin ancestors, it's really hard to find actually. And part of that is that a lot of the more introspective social aspects that we talk about that might make us more human are they don't fossilize, right? So it's really hard to know when we started grieving for our dead, or when we started believing in religious things, or when we started having compassion for other people. But we do find evidence, some evidences of this, like compassion, for instance. We find that in Neanderthal, who there are people that there are fossils of badly maimed individuals that should not have lived beyond their maiming, but you see evidence that they've healed and lived a long life, and so they obviously took care of their wounded and they cared for other people. So we can see sometimes these evidences of these introspective type things. But as far as very obvious things, I kind of go through a couple of things that people usually say, like, what about walking upright? Well, that's been around for 6 million years. What about tools? 2.6 million years. Controlling fire? 1.7 million years ago. Oh, and I should say, we've been around, Homo sapiens, our species, has been around between 250 and 300,000 years now, and that's based on the latest fossil finds that we have. It may be older, but we know of 300,000-year-old um, Homo sapiens. So building tools, controlling fire, living in social groups, 500,000 years ago. Communication, we do have 300,000 years ago, and 250,000 years ago, but it wasn't us. It was another species. Longer childhood tends to be something that's very Homo sapiens, where we just stay babies for a really long time. You don't see that in many other species. And there's a lot of parental care that goes into our offspring. Believe me, I've got 4 of them, and keeping them alive has been just a total challenge, right? And so that's one of those things. It's kind of uniquely human, but we only see it around 160,000 years ago. So Homo sapiens were around before that. Um, Religious beliefs we see in Neanderthal, burying their dead with possessions. Plant and animal domestication is definitely us, but that's only 10,000 years ago. So we were around a lot longer than when this occurred. So the point is that there's really not a clear demarcation of like this makes us human. But that's really neat because it means that we share a lot with our ancestors, and that our body was very well designed, and it was a slow process to where we become who we are today. Um, but we are the only species left in our genus, and I think that's pretty cool. Let's see. So then we just talk about some of the evidences, right? So this is really important. One of the big hypotheses of what split us from the rest of the great apes, right, is that if you look at all the chromosome numbers, everybody on the tree has 48 except us. We have 46 chromosomes. So we're like missing some chromosomes, which usually is a bad thing. But if you actually go look at the chromosomes, chimps have these two really short chromosomes, and we have one really long chromosome that is actually composed of their 2 short chromosomes, which is really cool. And so we've actually had a chromosomal fusion that's occurred. So you can see it here. This is a better picture. You can see the 2 chimp chromosomes and the human chromosomes, and based on the banding patterns, we actually see it. We also see telomere sequences that would be here and here. We see them in our genetics. We see sequences that look like telomeres, and we see a sequence that looks like a centromere right here. So definitely we had a fusion event. When you have a fusion event, it makes it more difficult, not impossible, but more difficult for the species with the different chromosome numbers to breed. And so that's very possibly a way that biological species, separated back 5 to 7 million years ago. And then we have another cool example of the Gulo gene, which is involved in vitamin C production. And so there was a mutation. Back around 63 million years ago, there was a mutation, and it's the exact same mutation in all of us, the New World, Old World, apes, and man. We all have the same mutation that doesn't allow us to create vitamin C, to make vitamin C. We have all the other enzymes in the pathway. We're just missing one. And so it's there, but it's mutated. But all the other ones are functional. but we can't make vitamin C. And we didn't even realize this until we left the habitats where vitamin C is plentiful, which the other great apes have never left. And so they've never had this issue. But we left and started going out on boats out to sea and not eating enough vitamin C and ending up with scurvy and realizing, oh my gosh, we can't make vitamin C. And if you look at it, though, it's the same exact mutation in all of us, which is very good evidence that we share a common ancestor. And so that's what you should have gotten from this activity.